God. Out of wind for 2 days straight. It's enough to drive you frickin' batty. Almost out. Those mountains way back there. Wind sucks. I'd almost take like a blizzard or frickin' rain. The wind seems to suck the life right out of you. I don't know why. Definitely had enough of it. Can't wait for some pizza.
That'd take a while.
This is how you come down. Okay, here we go, another day. Another day. What are you doing with it? Hopefully you're doing something good with it. A buddy of mine forwarded me this earlier through Sarah. I gotta start this off, why not? Show you a little bit of insanity in the world. Okay, Rob Schneider, intelligent man, comedian. Ready? Where's this thing here?
California.
Come on.
It has gone out of committee to approve slave reparations to be paid to people who were never slaves, to be paid for by people who never owned slaves, in a state that never had slaves. That's like paying child support for a child you never had to a woman you never fucked. In California.
Oh boy. Some of the people in charge, right? Anyway, thought I'd share that this morning. Now, moving along. Let's hear some voices, shall we? Some honest voices with some honest experiences. Who do we got? What do we got? Man, I can't wait to get back out in the woods. Can't wait to get back out doing a lot of shit. But I can do this right now. This is titled Multiple Experiences in Washington State, Strange Sounds and Lights in the Forest. Sending this email on May 20th, 2021. Please share just my first name for business reasons. Hello, Steve. I bring to you multiple experiences I've had in Washington State. I'm only 24 years old, but I've been in the mountains practically my whole life since 10 years old. Starting from the first experience near Chinook Pass. Me and a friend, only 12 to 14 years old at the time, decided to go on a late night walk while our parents were enjoying themselves at a local cabin. Excuse me. We started walking down a pretty well-known road in the forest and heard a huge rock hit the water to our left. Immediately, we ran in the opposite direction in fear. We summed it up to be a cougar, or a wild animal that was startled and knocked a rock off the cliff into the water. My friend and I recently connected and both vividly remember the exact same thing. Now moving forward to the age of 17 at a local pond near White Pass, Washington. One night, a different buddy and I went up to a local pond. Just after playing some guitar, it was a full moon, a sense of fear came over me, and I hopped back in the car. The whole time my friend had been uneasy, sitting in the car shining a flashlight into the woods. After starting up the car and driving away, my AC was on full blast. We immediately got the most putrid smell. A mixture of wet garbage, decaying carcass, and musky wet dog. And to this day, I have never smelled the same smell. Not even living in the city, walking downtown near dumpsters and landfills. Emotion took over after we left the local pond, and I broke down in tears for some unknown reason. In our lives, this was another event that was tossed under the rug and forgot for years until recently talking about it. Starting here is when I started a lot more solo expeditions in the state of Washington, into the Wenatchee National Forest, Gifford, Pinchot, and Mount Rainier National Forest areas, only for the love of nature, campfires, and true inspiration. It wasn't until about 4 years later I heard a very low growl from very close into the woods, and summed it up to be a bear. It was almost as if I was warned to not move any closer by this wild animal. The following year, in the month of May, on a solo camp trip, morel hunting, I had a bizarre experience at the top of a mountain. It was around 11 p.m. midnight when I heard a strange beeping sound. It sounded like a metal detector moving up and down the ridgeline to the west of my camp. After I went to bed, obviously spooked, the same noise came back to the east of my camp and seemed to be moving back and forth. At the time, I felt a presence of something outside of my custom truck bed camper. I just let it go to a nocturnal bird and got some rest. One thing I noticed is that the human mind will always try to put unexplained experiences into a box. For me, it was explaining these experiences away to wild animals and birds. I knew there were never any other people out where I was at, because I intentionally camp away from other campers. Following this experience, I became more aware and observant of my surroundings while camping alone, and have observed Blue lights in the forest, very late at night, dropping into trees about a mile or two away. The strange light phenomenon is real as well. For the connection to Bigfoot, I haven't a clue. The more I ask experienced outdoors people, the more stories I hear. Reluctantly, my no bullshit uncle finally opened up about his experiences from working radio towers. He had to snowmobile into very remote areas for work, sometimes late in the evening, and he heard what sounded like a moose huffing, puffing, and growling. His coworker reminded him that there are no moose in that area, and he was shocked. Also, he heard loud tree knocks from multiple angles, almost simultaneously, and couldn't explain this either. Some claim spiritual connections are the cause for these strange events. Some say it's the very nature of human psychology to imagine human-like figures, or that it's just an unknown primate. The answers will be unknown for a long time, but the community you have built is a damn good start to getting the truth out. Governments definitely know more about these topics too, and we should be entitled to know the truth. Anyways, thanks for your channel, bringing light to the subject, sharing other people's encounters. Keep up the good work. I continue to adventure with no fear, but try to always go with a friend now. Regards, Chase. There you go. You're a brave dude, man. Sorry it took so long to find this email, but it is what it is. But it got shared. Excuse me. If you're still hanging out and you've learned some more since, dump it on us, alright? Don't be shy, dump it on us. Here's another one from Washington State. This is titled, Jeff from the Western Slope of the Cascades, Washington State. Dear Steve, my name is Jeff Pierce. I live on the western slope of the Cascade Mountain Range. I moved out here to this area when I was 2 years old. I'm 56 years old. We moved here in 1966. I grew up in a place called Falls City, Washington, and went to school there. I went to high school up in the Snoqualmie, Washington. Well, in Snoqualmie, Washington, which is also right up next to the mountains, right there where Mount Si is located. Which, if you look it up, there's been countless Sasquatch sightings. I was 16 years old for my first encounter. I just got my first car, 1966 Chevrolet Capri. And me and my girlfriend one Friday night, cruising around in my car, went up Mount Si Road and pulled into the trailhead, the trail that runs up to the top of Mount Si. It is like 4 parking lots deep, I guess you could say, if you were to pull into the entrance. There'd be one big area, then another area, then another area, then another area, so we're in heavy, furthest end parking place. Right there where you walk into the trailhead. It was an August night, so it was hot. We were laying on a blanket outside of the car. And when we were making out or whatever we're doing, or talking real quiet, I kept hearing something sneaking up on us. I always kept a listen for things like that because I grew up in the mountains. I grew up in the woods. I know what's in them, at least I thought. And every time that we would start talking or doing whatever, it would start creeping closer and closer. And it was starting to trip me out. So I told Christine, I whispered this to her, I said, get back and get in the car. I said real quiet, like, get in the car. I said, there's something out here in the woods, and every time we're talking, it gets closer and closer, I whispered to her. So I reach up, open the driver's door, and as I'm still on the ground, on my knees, on a blanket, she gets in the car real quiet. The time was around midnight, or so. It was late at night. I reached down to grab the blanket, and right in front of my face, it couldn't have been more than just a couple of feet, was the loudest scream I have ever heard in my life. It effing scared the shit out of me. Christine is freaking out. I jump in the car real quick, hit the key, flipped on the headlights because the scream came from right in front of my car, and I seen nothing. I put the car in reverse, pinned it to the wood, didn't even take my foot off the gas, and I effing flipped it. A huge Brody right there in the parking lot, and it went 360 degrees around and see if I can see what it was. that was screaming and that was stalking us. And I know what it was. It was a Sasquatch, and I've always known that. See, when I was in high school, I had friends of mine that would tape record the sounds of the Sasquatch on the side of the mountain, the ones that lived directly under the base of Mount Si, and I heard all these recordings. I mean, I grew up around them. They've always been there, and it's something that I've known about, and it wasn't because of my parents telling me either. Us kids back then knew about them, and we just gave them a wide berth, and they've actually never gave me any bad feelings or feelings of dread like all these people are telling you about. I've never felt that with them, and I've had numerous dealings with them. Fast forward to 2010, 2011. I was working for a man named Fred Nenemkin, and he was an elder of the Colville Indian Nation that also operated a logging outfit in the Colville Indian Nation over on eastern slope of the Cascades right outside of Keller, Washington. And I worked for him for about a year, I guess, maybe a little less, running excavator and building all the roads for the logging trucks and all the landings and whatnot, and doing excavator pile / cleaning up / running the excavator, so I was always on the slopes of the mountain. And also operating the road grader, plowing snow and keeping the roads graded so the trucks could get in and out. Fred had one of his nephews working for him, and he operated a feller buncher. And also there was one other man that was a friend of theirs, another native that worked there, so there was 3 of us and Fred. And we worked up at a place called Gold Lake. You can look that up on the maps outside of the Republic, Washington, and Keller area. Well, I decided I was going to stay up there, up in the reservation, up in the top of the mountains where we worked, and everybody laughed at me. Those guys, Fred's 2 guys that worked for him, said that I would not last 2 days up there. I'd be running out of there, effing freaking out scared. They called them stick people up there. Not only was there Sasquatch up there, but there was also grizzly bear, brown bear, cinnamon brown, and some of the biggest effing black bear that I've ever seen, not to mention the hybrid wolves, and also every cat and every other predator that you can imagine here in the Washington state, up in the mountains. So there was quite a plethora to choose from. But I grew up in the mountains, in the woods, and I wasn't scared of any of that stuff. And I knew what to do, and I watched my ass and all that you know. It was just me and my dog. One night I was parked up there on the landing that I just got done building, and I was staying in the water truck, full-size international cab, over. I didn't know what size the tank was. It was probably 10,000 gallons or something, so it was a big water truck. Anyway, me and the dog were up there on that landing one night, parked, and I slept in the sleeper of the semi, which is pretty thick and, pretty tough to get into. I mean, you're going to make some noise breaking into this truck to get me if that's the case. My dog, Mighty, woke me up in the middle of the night. I want to say it was around 1 or 2 in the morning, and woke me up whimpering. And the truck was effing swaying. Okay, little typo there, no big deal. And the truck was effing swaying back and forth. I thought we were in an earthquake, literally. And then it dawned on me, it was the Sasquatch. I just knew it. I reach up to the front of the cab and turn on the flood lamps that were mounted on the back tank of the water truck. And when I turned on the lights, when I turned the lights on at the back of the truck, and I'm looking in the mirror from the sleeper, I just bent into the front of the cab and flipped them on. The Sasquatch let go of the water tank. He was in the back corner of the driver's side, pushing the tanker back and forth, shaking it, so I'd wake up. I laugh about it to this day because they weren't out there to bother me, really. They were just effing with me, But when I turned them flood lamps on, he just let go of the truck, turned around, and just slowly walked back into the brush. He didn't run. He didn't. He was just slowly just turn around, walk back in the brush, and all I could see was a silhouette of him because I said it was 2 in the morning. Flood lamps had him. He was dark brown or black. He was around 10 feet high. He's probably around 800 to 900 pounds. I wanted to say that's the only time the everyday thing like that Sorry, I want to say that's the only time, the everyday thing like that, but in the mornings we work 2 down. So that was, I had to get up at 3 in the morning and be ready by working by 4 a.m. So I get up 3 every morning. I'll climb out of the truck and I'll build a fire right there by the truck. I had a fire pit wherever I was parked. I usually parked in this one same spot because it seemed okay, it might have been the talk to text thing. It's getting a little confusing, but we'll get this. It seemed to feel like I was all right there, And there were several hillsides around me that towered up above the truck there. I want to say there was 3 or 4 knobs they were all about the same height, I guess you could say. And I could hear him every morning. They would be out there hooting and shit from the hilltop to hilltop, talking. They were speaking every morning. And I mean every morning for 6 months. I could hear him every day. Like I said, they never gave me any problems. They never heard anything of mine. They never ripped up my camp. They were just there. And I knew they were there. And they knew that I knew. But they were cool about stuff. So I just wanted to give you that little bit of a tidbit for the Sasquatch end of it. I haven't had any negative experiences with it. Not like I want to shoot the shit with him or anything. They're kind of intimidating because they're so effing big. They're so strong. Man, I mean, way strong. Unbelievably strong. When you see a root ball and it's like an 8-foot fir tree sheared off. About 10 to 12 feet of it sheared off, ripped out of the ground and stuck in the dirt backwards, with the root ball sticking up in the air. That's effing strong. And it's marking their territory. And usually when I see stuff like that in the woods, I just tend to not go up in there because I know that's a marker of theirs from what I've gathered in my investigation. My own sorts. Hold on a minute. All right. When you get a dog to be a guard dog and it starts barking, you go, look, right? All good. Turn the heater off so I don't have the background sound. We're going to carry on with this very interesting email. And it's marking their territory. And usually when I see stuff like that in the woods, I just tend to not go up in there because I know that that's a marker of theirs. From what I've gathered, my investigation, my own sorts. Running an excavator, the track excavator, you're high up off the ground basically. And so when I was clearing roads and stuff for the loggers, I always noticed that branches in the brush going through these small trees and in the brush, I noticed that the branches were snapped off about 8 to 10 feet up off the ground. I started seeing a pattern. I started seeing trails in the woods, but you never know that they walk through there because you don't see the broken branches unless you look up. And once you look up, and if you're up that high anyway in the machine, you can see them all over the place, which I thought was pretty interesting. I'm glad that I seen that because it let me know where I was at. Steve, I got to tell one more story, and this one here scared the life out of me, just about. I was 14 years old when I grew up in the Redmond Fall City Road, in between Redmond and the Fall City. We lived up on 5 acres up there. It was heavily wooded, and there's Sasquatch around there. Many black bears, cats, you name it. I mean, they're all there, all the carnivores, predators. But I ran those woods, and I rode my horses through them. I didn't ever have any problems with anything out there. I was even friends with the bears out there because I would follow the poachers around when I was a kid. And wherever they would set bear traps up, and then they bait the bears in with apples. And there's a trap down the bottom of the apples. I would trip the trap, pull the big steel pin out of the ground that held the chain and the trap into the ground. And then I would throw them in a peat bog. And I did this until these effing people would leave and never come back to poach down there because I didn't like them doing that to the bears and shit down there. So I became friends with him. Actually, they never bothered me. And even when a mother with her cubs, which you know what it's like when they're deadly, and I've had them walk within 20 feet of me. And my sister's waiting for the school bus, and that big old bear came out of the bush, walked right into the center of the highway at 6 in the morning while we're waiting on the bus stand on her hind legs, and looked me square in the eyes, not my sisters, me. And all the while she's staring me in the eyes, she made a couple of grunts, 2 or 3 grunts, and here come 3 little babies out of the bush, still standing there on 2 legs staring at me in the middle of the road, not 20 feet from me, and I shit you not, her cubs would run past. She waited till they got in the brush. She dropped off. She dropped down on all fours, gave me another look, and then took off. I just told my sisters, whatever you do, don't effing scream. Don't move. Don't do anything. We're all good. Just don't move. And they didn't, and we were fine. But I've seen them bears all the time. I think they knew that I saved them. I think that's what I want to believe anyway. Anyway, the last story, I was pushing my bicycle in my 10-speed up a place called Toll Hill Road, about 1.5 miles from my house. The hill's really steep, heavily wooded. And I'm pushing my bike up the last little bit. I was going to my buddy's house and lived up on the hill up there. And this is the story that really, really bothers me, but I was coming up around this one corner and I heard this something running. Something heavy and big running towards me off to my right. There is a fire road right there. And I look at this thing and I don't know what it was to this day. I don't know what it was. People tell me that it could have been a dog man, or I don't know what it was. And I don't know. I hope somebody else that hears the story has seen one of these before, but I want to say it was the size of a brown bear, a big brown bear. I want to say about 600 pounds around. You know, this thing had long silver hair with black tips. And when it ran, it was like it flowed, like in the wind. It just flowed. I just remember that. And it looked like it had an oversized wolf head on it. I don't know what the F it was. But it comes running toward me. It was probably, I want to say, about 300 feet away and closing fast. And when it ran, it pulled with both front legs and pushed off with both back legs at the same time. So it was going, you know what I'm saying, it was pulling and pushing. And they didn't stagger their run like a dog does. They were using both legs, both front and back legs, pushing off and pulling. It was effing weird. This thing was hauling ass. It was coming right at me, snarling and snapping, and it was coming to get me. I mean, it was literally coming to kill me. And I knew it. This is the first time, the only time I've ever been scared of the bush like this, whereas feared for my life. And I just instantly, I didn't get scared. And I stayed put or whatever. I flipped my bike around, my 10-speed. I jumped on that, pushing down the road, down the hill, because it's going downhill, pushing as fast as I could. Jumped down that effing thing. Probably had talk to text, right? But we're picking it up. And pedaled my ass off. And I can hear it. I never looked back. I could hear it running behind me. I could hear his nails on the pavement. It's just effing scares the shit out of me. Just thinking about it. And I'm sorry about all the swear words anyway. I made it. I got away, obviously. I never rode my bike up that hill again. Never did I. I went up to my buddy's house, but I'd go through the woods, the bottom of the hill, and go straight up through the brush to his house. But I would never, ever go by the road up that same around there on the end of the bicycle again. So anybody out there that has ever seen one of those, let me know. Thanks, Steve. I'd appreciate it. I'm pretty schooled in how things work in this world, like you. I'm not scared of anything except for that one critter right there. That's just telling you about LOL. I wish people would open up their eyes a little bit and see what's around here. You know, they're being so dumbed down, and they're so scared of what they're so scared of each other. They don't even have them, don't even know where they're at, who they are, what they can do. Boy, I'm telling you, you can do amazing things when you put your mind to it. Anyway, thanks for the platform. Appreciate it. You're a good man there, Steve, and watch your ass, because you know what I'm saying. They don't like it, and you know they don't like it, and we don't care. I don't care that they don't like it, but I just don't want to see them blindsiding a guy. If you read this, I'll have more for you. I have a lot more experiences, but not in this email. Peace, brother. Wow. Appreciate that email, man. Red, if you're still here, man, that was 2021. If you're still here with us, please email me back. Please. I am absolutely interested in what you have to share. Wow, right? I've got zero experience with the dog man thing. I don't have anything. All I have is what I hear from the people. That's it. But so we got a guy here that sounds a little similar to a lot of people I've been friends with for a lot of years. Work in the bush, run an excavator, run equipment. And I always look forward to hearing from people who work in the forest, especially around British Columbia, Washington State, just because of my backyard, right? And I also, people who work in the woods, they know how to describe what they're seeing. And that's a little shitty, isn't it? I mean, the guy is familiar with the Bigfoot thing, the Sabe people. But when he's seen this thing, and it doesn't even sound like he'd heard about one of these dogman things prior to his experience, right? By the way, he shared it with us, almost hesitant, saying, you know what, I've known about these Sasquatch things all my life, but this one thing I've seen, I don't know what it was, but this is what it looked like, and he shared with us a description of how many people have seen that shit? And it's interesting that he was so terrified of it. I wonder why. Such a weird thing. How many people have had these things coming running at them, and they could obviously take you down in a second, but it doesn't happen. That's odd too, right? Yes, maybe it does happen, but obviously we're not going to hear from dead people. But I find it hard to believe that people are being killed or taken from these beings, either one of these beings described, because how can you have so many survivors sharing their experiences? It does make sense, right? If this thing that's described as a dog man is running down human beings and killing them, then how can they have so many misses, as in missing, not getting the human? It doesn't make sense to me. But you know what I mean? So there's a 600, 700, 800 pound thing that looks like a dogman type thing chasing somebody down the frickin' road, running at somebody in the highway, in the traffic, paralleling your vehicle like nothing. So many people have had encounters with that description of a thing, and they live to share it here. Now, I'm just saying, it's not really adding up to these being the ultimate culprits of killing people, because we're not hearing of, not too many people are sharing that this thing was scratching, tearing at the door of the house, ripping a hole in there, trying to get at them when they shot at the face or something. You know what I mean? Like there isn't dozens of actual physical, this thing's trying to physically get us, as in trying to shred a hole in the side of the house or the truck, like really trying to get us. You know what I mean? And then they detour it by shooting it or something. I don't know, but we're not hearing that. We're not. Hope I'm getting this across smoothly. My brain and the lips don't mesh up sometimes, and I've been up till 2 a.m. and past few, I haven't had much sleep lately, but I mean, I've got tons of shitloads of grizzly bear close encounters of people, of grizzlies trying to get somebody, trying to get in, or trying to do all these nasty, shitty things sometimes, but there's shitloads of evidence of a grizzly bear nearly getting a human being intentionally. I don't have shitloads of grizzly bears running right at somebody and nothing happens. You know what I mean? Am I making any sense? I hope I am. We're not having many near close calls having to fight off, fight back, and fight off something described like these dogmen thing. Whereas if they are killing people left, right, and center, we should have a handful of real close calls where somebody had to fight back and stop that physical attack. That's what I'm getting at. With this amount of emails, that has to come up. Eventually, it has to. Right? But we're having, it's always, the consistent pattern is this thing with a head like a freaking wolf or a black German Shepherd coming running right at us. Could have had us like easily, but it doesn't ever get anybody, and they don't ever have to fight it to make it go away. All right, I'll stop. Very confusing. This lifetime is freaking confusing at times, isn't it? If you start listening. If you don't listen, then it's not so confusing, is it? If you don't listen. Washington State, Bigfoot Information Highway. Steve, it's Mike Ray. Thank you for reading my story. After you read my story, you asked for a description of what I saw. I don't know, I wonder when this was. 2021. No problem, sir. It's burnt into my soul. And here is her description. As I looked behind the tent, it was 5 a.m. I didn't add in my story that I had a flashlight, nor that I stoked the fire. There was enough light for me to make out her face and her body down to her knees. Her face was dark brown in color, like a chocolate lab color. Her skin was smooth with no wrinkles. Her hair wasn't covering the mid part of her face, rather the hair stopped at her sideburns down to the bottom of her chin on both sides. Her head hair was mid-forehead and messy. Shoulders, they were nearly 4 feet across, round but subtle shoulders. I said it was a female, boobs and all. Yes, breasts were muscular yet sagging down to the upper stomach. Nipple definition obvious, with no hair around them. The stomach was a pot belly but muscular. The hair was slightly thicker than that of the face, but thin enough to see definition. Her arms came down to lower thighs. Hair was thick and much longer. I'd say about 5 inches in length. Massive legs, wide together, bigger than the waist. Her groin had thick hair covering, no obvious, quote, parts, end quote, visual. What captivated me was her face. Large, almond-shaped eyes, just like ours. Slightly yellow scalar, the white part of the eyes, with dark brown or black pupils. No hair, but skin was weathered. No wrinkles. Smudged nose, nostrils slightly forward, large eyebrows with noticeable brow ridge. Ears not really noticeable. Thick lips, roughly 4 inches wide. I noticed her face more than anything else, since she seemed to be actually smiling. Much like humans. I know they can impress emotion. Her physical appearance scared me. I believe she stood about 8 feet tall, and as we looked at the tree she stood by, her head was even with a branch we later measured to be 8 foot 1 inch. Everything about her was amazing. But as I said, when I felt my father's hand touch me, I was at peace with her and somewhat more curious. That's all I remember, Steve. I sure hope that helps. I couldn't see past her knees. She was standing in brush next to our site. These beings are real. It's not imagination. This event has opened my spirit for more. I need answers. My dad and I decided since the weather was warm and dry, we'd do a bit more investigation of the area we saw the female. We set up trail cameras near a trail bordering a swamp area near to where we hiked in March. We left 4 cameras 50 yards apart facing the trail and the swamp, and 3 of the 4 we recovered, all with 2 weeks of photos of deer, elk, and bobcat, and no Bigfoot. The missing trail camera was not cut down. Rather, the 6-inch alder we attached it to was snapped above the mount, and it was slipped off. Gone. Heavy Oregon grape bushes on the floor around, so no prints. As we searched for the camera, we noticed along the edges of the swamp there were several areas where the cattails were pulled out of the mud with missing rootstock. It looked as if they were bit off. It looked as if they were bit off, then simply discarded on the ground. It wasn't a harvest. Rather, it appeared to be more like something was browsing, selecting the younger plants, leaving the tall, older stalks alone. There was water-filled prints noticeable, however, not defined. Didn't take photos since they don't impress anyone. As we moved around to the south side of the swamp, we were hit with the odor of decomp, strong smell of something dead. The smell came from an area where it's full of blackberry, Scotch broom, and heavy undergrowth tucked up against short pine, all next to an area of pine and fir planted in 1981. There are 2 streams feeding the pond/swamp year-round. A larger creek, 6 to 8 feet across, 8 to 60 inches deep, running to the swamp, spilling into the Chehalis River. This creek hosts salmon 3 times a year for spawn. Other food sources include Oregon grape, blackberry, huckleberry, wild apples off of 9 trees. They were obviously eating the cattails, crawfish, and fresh water mussels. A large herd of elk reside in that area and move about in an area of some 50 square miles. Plenty of deer, mice, and commercial corn as well. Once in a while you run across an old deer skeleton, not dumped by man, rather, miles from the main road where nobody hikes. I believe we stumbled onto their habitable food sources, perhaps home range. We haven't seen nor heard one in the 6 times we've gone out since my first encounter with my dad. But I am clear, as my father is as well, on how these Bigfoot survive. Since my encounter, I've been starving for more information. I need to know more. I've been focusing on the things I've not heard anyone describe. The search area has been confined to this water source. So far, however, I will venture out further to find anything to do with them. I smartly take someone with me because I've no idea what to expect, but will continue to search for more answers. Hope this helps someone fill in the blanks, or as you say, quote, pieces of the puzzle, end quote. Steve, keep inspiring everyone. I'm damn glad you're here, Mike. I'm damn glad you're here, Mike. This place is absolutely nothing without true, honest, brave people like you. You guys be careful what you ask for out there, man. Be careful what you ask for when you're looking into these beings intentionally. A lot of people, not a lot of people, well, a fair amount of people have their life changed from it, right? They have their life changed from it. Make sure you email us back again, all right? Sorry it took so long to get your email, but it is what it is. There you go. If that wasn't a detailed frickin' description or what? Right? Here's another one. Encounter at Beacon Rock on the Washington side of Gorge. Hi, Steve. My name is Doug, and you can use my name, Doug McKay, that is. On March 6, 2020, I had the pleasure of meeting you and Dave Plattis at the Lake Quinault Casino in Washington, 3.5-hour drive from where I live. The next day, you were going to give the seminar. You and Dave were, but at least I got to meet you and Dave and Dave's wife, Angie, the night before, because I had to go home and get my 6-year-old grandson, Mason, or else I would have grabbed a room that night and stayed on the 7th when you had your seminar. Okay, enough of that. I'm sorry about your horse. Kids, an older email. I've been following since 2017. I do miss a lot of your hunt stories and your black-tailed deer hunting stories and videos because all I've ever hunted here in Washington, which is Western Washington, is blacktail. That's all I've ever shot. But with all your emails coming in and of what we're being lied to and what we're being kept from, I understand what you're doing. And I still support you no matter what, even though I miss the other emails or videos as well. Thanks, man. Appreciate the kind words. I've had several encounters with these beings. because I spent most of my recreation in the mountains and in the foothills here on the western side of Washington State. Another one comes to mind when me and my son were above Beacon Rock. Like I said, up the gorge on the Washington side, we were riding up this old cat road, and for some reason I just happened to look up the bank about 50 to 60 yards above us. And there was this big head, no neck, and shoulders. Long hair, long, dark, shaggy hair, looking down on us. And I remember saying to my son, keep an eye on that and see what happens. As we kept riding the horses, he wasn't spooked, and it was the weirdest thing I ever saw because it was there 1 second and just gone the next, like it vanished into thin air. But I can't say I've seen one of these beings. Now, I've had many other encounters in the years I've been deer and elk hunting. I think this email is getting lengthy enough, so I'll end it right here soon. I wish you great holidays, my friend. I'm sorry that it didn't work out. With Zeus the Moose, I think the year 2019 would have been the best year to get him or his sheds. I think that's when he was at the peak of his prime, but I'm sure you know more about that than I do. But anyway, stay safe, my friend. Good luck on all your other hunts, and may you have a great holidays. Doug McKay. Doug, appreciate that, man. Sorry it took a while to get your email. Nothing I can do about it. All right. Dog's barking. Heard a motor. I gotta go look. All right. Anybody have a teenage girl at home? Teenage girl who has her own job. She's got 2 jobs now, and it seems these delivery trucks come by the hour. Crazy, isn't it? How fast people order the smallest of items. And anyway, that's who was here. It's handy having a guard dog on a rural property because I don't really hear much from in here. Sarah's in the house, healing away. Oh, the blacktail, yeah. So, hey, just so you know, I'm almost done my blacktail hunter book. It's going to be full color pages, hardcover book will be the first one available. And hopefully, there's just nothing for blacktail hunters out there. But there's going to be now pretty quick. Anyway, sorry. Let's get back on track. No talking about me. Let's go here. Hi from Arizona. Story from Washington State. That's a few in a row. There's a lot goes on in that state. Hi, Steve. Enjoy your channel. My name is Chuck Brown from Arizona. I have a nephew who lives and works up in Washington State. He worked with Yakima tribe for fishery department. He told me a story of 2 guys he worked with. They were timber marking and heard noises in the forest. Next thing is a large boulder-sized rock came hurling through the trees and landed not far from them. One of the guys took off back to the truck and one stayed and seen the creature that threw the rock. The second guy that stayed longer was the only one who saw it, and he was not the same after. And they both left the scene, and I don't think they went back. He's a hunter and he's heard strange noises up in the mountains on the Yakima reservation. He says he just leaves the area if they hear the big man. When I visit, I'm always looking as the area is so lush with trees and water along the Columbia River. I just want to share this story and say Yate, which means hello in my Navajo language. Thanks, Chuck Brown. Chuck, appreciate you, man. Appreciate you sending that, Chuck. And if you got some more you want to send, you know where to send it. I want to hear it. I want to hear it. I've got so many. How long's this email? Well, not too bad. I'll close with this one. Now, this is titled Visitor. Hey Steve, top of the morning to you and the rest of the round table. I'll share with you something that has been going on now for several months. Just know that I've used the knowledge gained from others' stories to meet this challenge head on. Oh, here we go. Every spring I have black bear that come out of the woods next to my home. They either cross out the bottom of my yard to cross the road or to cross into the woods. They come from the crop fields before crossing through my woods to get to the next field. It's also how they make their way to the mountains, which I can see from my front porch. A few weeks back, I stepped out of my basement door and I could hear something moving around in the woods. I thought bear, stayed put. It was dark, but I never turned my lights on. I knew it was behind my daughter's truck, or very close to that, which is directly in front of me. I took a seat on the chair just outside of the door and listened. To make a long story short, a few minutes went by without movement, and I got growled at. Not a loud and ferocious growl, but a growl nonetheless. It sounded really weird. Not a bear growl. It didn't sound normal at all. I went ahead and got up and went inside. I was followed by all my cats, who usually stay outside, lol. They came running right in behind me. A few evenings later, just as the sun was going down, once again I'm sitting in the same chair outside my basement door. I'm building a garage/tool area. And I was studying what braces I needed to install and where for the next day work. A massive shadow walks through my work area coming from the woods behind it. I looked directly at the shadow and it was gone. I looked back above it to the roof beams and I could see it. As long as I wasn't looking directly at it, I could see it. It was bent forward like a massive ape walking underneath the very roof beams I had put up that day. If it had stood up to its full height and tried that, it would have been too tall. Those roof beams are 10 feet at the main center beam, 9 foot to the 2 outside beams. I had help putting them up there. I watched as this massive black shadow walked behind my home and I lost sight of it. I was trying to adjust my eyes so I could see it without looking straight at it. I knew what it was, and I never felt like I was in danger. It had masked itself, so no one was supposed to know it was there. I have a long history of seeing things like that. 2 weeks later, during the day, I was repairing the goat fence at the back of my property. New fence had been ran and the post set. It was just securing the fence to the post, and I get another growl. Same tone as the first growl weeks before from behind my truck. The German Shepherd was still laying on the black, and the black lab never alerted either. I looked all around and up into the mature trees. I was close to and saw nothing. It was as if my dogs were oblivious. The goats never reacted either. I spoke out loud saying, "This is the second time you've growled at me." My German Shepherd chases bear, so I'm pretty confident at that point that I'm the only one hearing this growl. It was non-aggressive, and it was as if it was just letting me know that it was there. A few evenings later, just as the sun was going down, again the dark shadow crossing from the woods. And this time I rebuked it in Jesus' name and told it to leave. If it comes close, not to come out of the woods and to leave my animals alone. I saw and heard nothing for 2 weeks, but we weren't done yet. Last week, as I was feeding the goats and the rest of the critters, and as I was turning to see why a goat was hollering, there it was in daylight, just inside the woods behind the goat pen. Solid black, long hair, skin on its face, arms by its side, broad-shouldered with no neck and sitting motionless. I could see it from the I could see it from the midsection up. I caught a quick look, and it was gone. Just that fast. I never saw it move. I'm now the proud owner of a house with busted siding that happened during the night that neither I or my daughter heard happen. And I'm missing a few chickens. I'm waiting for it to let me know it's around again. I'm not happy, but from what Scott and others have said, acting out is normal for them. I'm over being mad, so now I'm working on how to handle this without it getting mad. By the way, there are huge electric lines inside the woods. The electric company had a helicopter cut trees back from. This big fella's passing through. I've been in those woods entirely too many times, including the last few days, trying to make sure I don't have a fox problem. I found no twisted, broken trees or any other indication of permanent position. That's the only thing that makes any sense to me. Quick question. Do whippoorwills holler at night, like in the middle of the night? I've heard a few of those, but never in the night until I moved here. I've decided to not flip out or be annoyed. These beings have been here longer than me. And if I'm not afraid of the bears, then I should approach this in the same manner. With respect to all wildlife by giving it its space. But we're gonna have a firm little talk. Grandma be the first for me, gonna be the first for me, that's for sure. Be safe, everyone. Stay blessed, Martha. Martha, when was this? 2023. Can you email us back and let us know how you are doing? There's going to be a lot of people that live rurally that have had the same experiences you're having, and they're probably inquisitive of how you're making out and how you're dealing, without a doubt. And there you go. Now, I got to go one more volley today. I'm pretty sure this is going to be my last day. Trying to get this thing done. I've had tunnel vision on it, no sleep for I don't know how long, and I haven't been talking to anybody outside of the house for I don't know how long. And I really have to get this done. And then I'll get back on track. And then we will roll the ball forward. So, share my story at howtohunt.com. It'll get read. It'll get read. And as maybe you notice or not, I go back and forth. So I go recent, and then I go in the past. And get to emails that really need to be heard, and people have probably thought they've been forgot about or over missed, or maybe they thought that I chose not to read their email, which obviously you guys know it's not the case. But everybody's going to be heard. If I got something to do with it, anything to do with it, everybody's going to be heard. So there you go. Or tell my story at howtohunt.com. And Sarah appreciates all the kind well wishes, big time. There you go. Okay, my mind's scrambling. I gotta go. I'm gonna be back shortly.
Well, here's the complimentary 360. And he's backpacked up here. Day 2 now, I think. I'm gonna make camp right where I'm standing. Now look at this. Look at this view. Where'd you rather be in the planet? We're in the middle of frickin' nowhere. And we're gonna go to sleep right here. Wake up right here. We're gonna break camp right in front of these sheep right here. We're gonna make camp in front of these rams.